Hey everybody, welcome to Fantasy R&R. This is your host Ryan.
And I'm Rob.
And this is our 2022 Fantasy Football Top 25.
This is Fantasy with Rob and Ryan, Fantasy R&R.
Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to get back into the football season and we're going to base our picks around the top 25 from fantasypros.com. We either may or may not agree with some of the positions that they've set. We're going to start right off with number one, which they have as a consensus top pick, Jonathan Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts, who had a breakout season last year. Not the best rookie season, just kind of middle of the pack, and took a little bit of a slow start for last year, but wound up becoming an absolute monster, top RB, top fantasy player in the league. Rob, do you agree with Jonathan Taylor as the number one overall pick going into 2022?
I can't dispute it. He had a monster year last year, but spoiler alert here, number two, Derrick Henry. I gotta be honest, if I have the number one pick, I'm taking the guy who's done it multiple seasons in a row over Jonathan Taylor. That's my take. What about you, Ryan? Who are you drafting?
Yeah, it's interesting because like I was saying, when I went to get Jonathan Taylor in our Dynasty League, if I had that first pick, it would have been Clyde Edwards-Helaire based off of everything we had read and seen. Jonathan Taylor was my consolation prize. I held on to him. I got trade offers over the last couple seasons. I did not actually expect him to do what he did last season. It's great to have someone who's a general consensus number one overall pick, but I look at some of the other names on this list and I wonder who could actually break out as just the monster of 2022. Sometimes I'm sitting here wondering, is Najee Harris on the Steelers going to be the best player of 2022 with all the ball handling that he gets? Or someone like Justin Jefferson, is he going to take over that Antonio Brown role? If you remember for a few years there, Antonio Brown was the general consensus number one overall pick. It's not always a running back. So I'm looking at this list right now, and this is what's crazy. Fantasy Pros is Jonathan Taylor at number one. They have Derrick Henry at number two. Christian McCaffrey at number three. And before we get into all the other players, think about all those players that are coming up behind Christian McCaffrey. Do you trust Christian McCaffrey as a number three overall pick? If you have the number three pick in a redraft, are you taking Christian McCaffrey? Does that make sense to you?
No, not at all. I don't like it. I mean, I get what they're saying. The ceiling, of course, when healthy, CMC is legit, as he's proven before, but back-to-back seasons now with really, really bad injuries. I am not touching that man, which sounds horrible, but I am not touching that man in any draft this year.
Yeah, I don't believe it. You're as gay as they come. Austin Eckler at number four for fantasypros.com. Now, this one's interesting because I do agree that Austin Eckler should be a top five pick. He's just been consistent time and time again, always putting up great running and passing numbers. And he's on a high-powered offense of Herbert, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. So he's definitely going to be up there for me. Maybe even a number two pick over Derrick Henry. So, if you get Austin Eckler number four, I think that's a great pick. The question is Isaiah Spiller going to cut into his production this year? I don't know if it's going to be enough, but we've seen Austin Eckler take over other people's playing time, like Melvin Gordon back in the day. So I actually like Austin Eckler number four. What about you?
Yeah, I like Eckler actually better than CMC, like without a doubt. I think he's the third best running back. So yeah, I don't even think there's a discussion there. I'd take Eckler over CMC easy.
Right. Now, Fantasy Pros also has Dalvin Cook at number five. So your top five here so far from them is Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Dalvin Cook at number five. See, even with Dalvin Cook's injury history, I kind of like his consistency when he's not injured, to the point where, he's not injured as much as Christian McCaffrey. I think Dalvin Cook probably deserves Christian McCaffrey's slot. It's just, again, whether or not he's going to be an injury risk, whereas someone like Najee Harris, who handled the ball so much last year, I'm kind of thinking he should be in that top five over, these guys. Just to kind of get into it right now so that we can have a discussion. Number 6 on Fantasy Pros is Joe Mixon. Number 7 is Najee Harris. Number 8, Nick Chubb. So right now we've just got running backs on the board. Let's talk about that for a second. As you're looking at this top 8, who would you move around?
Okay, so I think we've gotten to a very important part into the draft, and I think we're looking at that last run of really solid RB1s. I propose to you this, as you just said: Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, Nick Chubb. you rank that 5, 6, 7, and 8. How would you rank those?
Okay, so I would, if I had to just do 5 through 8, I'm going to say
Yes,
at
that's
5,
all we're talking about.
Yeah, Najee Harris at 5, Nick Chubb at 6, Joe Mixon is probably, you know what, I'll say Dalvin Cook over Joe Mixon because Joe Mixon does have the injury risk there. So let's say this. Mine's going to be Najee Harris at 5, Nick Chubb at 6, Dalvin Cook at 7. I'll put Joe Mixon at 8. That's what I'm thinking right there.
Okay, you and I pretty much, you nailed it when you first said it. I'm going Najee Harris, Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, and Dalvin Cook. I'm not sold on Dalvin Cook as much as I think like CMC's the new Dalvin Cook. I think when he's healthy, he's great. When he's not, there's a running back in Alexander Madison right behind him that can just surely take the reins and run away with it if something were to happen to Dalvin Cook again. So, like, job security-wise, I like Harris. Chubb's got a little bit with, what's his name they have behind him? Kansas City ex-running back, Kareem Hunt. Thank you. But I still love Nick Chubb. I think he's legit. And then Mixon and then Cook.
And remember, this is all kind of based off of, like, you know, we're already, let's just agree to disagree or agree to agree that Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler should be where they are. I'm not sold that Christian McCaffrey should be 3 over any of the guys we just mentioned. So
where do you put Kristen McCaffrey in that group?
You know, I probably put him dead last at 8, and I take everybody before him at this point. And remember, I was a huge Christian McCaffrey fan. I had him in a dynasty league since 2017, and you know, got trade offers for him, wouldn't get rid of him, and you know, he's been a disappointment the last 2 seasons. Do I think he comes back? I'm sure if he stays healthy the whole year, he'll be productive, but I'm not sold that he'll be any more productive than Najee Harris or Nick Chubb. And we're not even including some of the guys behind them on this list that we haven't gotten to yet. For example, Cooper Kupp at 9, Justin Jefferson at 10. That's Fantasy Pros right now. I got to be honest, if I've got the chance and I'm in that top 10, I've got, you know, let's say we're in a 10-team league and all of these guys do go in the top 10, I'm taking Justin Jefferson before Christian McCaffrey, and I'm probably taking Justin Jefferson before Cooper Kupp, because this seems to be the trend every year, which is you see Jonathan Taylor with his breakout year. Cooper Kupp, who has been productive but also had an injury, but he had a monster breakout year that he probably can't replicate. So you're going to be disappointed, almost like when you had Patrick Mahomes in 2018 and then you draft him in 2019. Justin Jefferson's been consistent since he's come into the league, and there's no reason to think he'll take a step back this year. So I'm looking at this list, and I'm saying, you know, if I'm sitting there in that top 10 and I've got the option of taking Christian McCaffrey and Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson gets taken first for me.
Yeah, I'm honestly completely in agreement with you here. I think you're buying Cooper Kupp at his career year, like you did with Christian McCaffrey the year he was trending as the number 1 pick, and he has not returned the value of the last 2 seasons. I think Cooper Kupp's a great wide receiver. Matt Stafford's going to be back. You know, now they do have Allen Robinson. But I agree with you, man. I think Justin Jefferson's the bigger play, and I like him, especially in more dynasty leagues, of course. But, you know, if you're drafting for dynasty, per se, you want to get the younger guy. But I agree with you. Justin Jefferson over Cooper Kupp, and I would agree with you over CMC. And honestly, I'd take it as far as Dalvin Cook. I just really don't like Dalvin Cook at all.
Yeah, so, you know, looking at the next guy, someone you have a lot of history with, we used to start to get into the debate of, you know, do we take this guy first round and then start looking at our running backs, especially if we're on a turnaround pick. Like, you're in a 12-man league, you take Travis Kelce, you know, at 12, and then you turn around and you pick your next running back. They've got Travis Kelce at 11 here, Jamar Chase at 12. You're kind of getting a little bit, you know, weary of taking Kelce early now this season, right? Maybe because he's going to be the only big target on Kansas City.
That's what I think. I mean, with them moving Tyreek Hill, sure, you know, you're going to be looking at Kelce in a bump, and I think who else did they get wide receiver wise? In the offseason to try to fill the void, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. I just blah, blah, sure. I still say he's the number 1 tight end, yes.
Yeah.
But man, that Jamar Chase sitting there, I probably flip-flop those two, to be honest. Fail-safe pick, shall I say, at tight end, of course. But I don't know. That cost is getting pretty steep, and that Tyreek Hill. I don't think Kansas City's going to be moving the ball as much as they did the last few years. And again, their running game is just atrocious. We all know this. So.
Yeah, and you were talking about Juju Smith-Schuster before, and I don't think he's going to have the same impact on the field for them that he did for the Steelers. So after this, we've got, let's run down the line a little bit here. DeAndre Swift at 13. They've got Mark Andrews at 14 and Aaron Jones at 15. And, what we're really discussing here is until we get to these players, it may not dawn on you. But, last year I said Aaron Jones was going to be a big bust. And he kind of was a huge disappointment for a lot of people. Mark Andrews, consistently good, but again, I don't know if I take that production over someone like CeeDee Lamb, who they've got way down on this list right now, and I think will take a big step up this year. DeAndre Swift, for me, this one's a little interesting because, I look at guys like, even Tyreek Hill going over the Dolphins or Leonard Fournette on Tampa Bay with this ridiculous news of him coming overweight. I look at DeAndre Swift and I'm like, yeah, it sounds good, and he's obviously an RB1 over there, but do I really trust him over guys like Fournette or Stephon Diggs or CeeDee Lamb? Seems a little crazy to me. So as we look at DeAndre Swift, Mark Andrews, Aaron Jones, and then after that at 16, Javonte Williams on the Broncos. What's going on here in your mind? If you've got that turnaround pick at 13 and you're looking at all these dudes under here that we haven't actively verbally said on the podcast yet, who's someone that you're looking at? I mean, are you looking at a QB here? Are you looking at another wide receiver? What would you do?
I don't think I'm looking at QB just yet because of the talent here at this point. I don't like Swift there. I don't like Andrews there at all. I like you said with Jones, you don't know really what you're getting, like, because of how we kind of took a step back last year. They're not going to have Devontae Adams. And Javonte Williams, I mean, I feel like is a little more of a dart throw, and I think they're just really thinking high on Russell Wilson, and Denver finally got their quarterback in this missing piece. But I like Javonte Williams. So I like him, and I agree with you. What do we have? Devontae Adams with Las Vegas. We were talking about that. I think that's interesting. I just think this truly is round two. This is kind of like, all right, we just went through so many studs, and now we're really kind of splitting hairs amongst a bunch of B-plus pitchers. Baseball. B-plus players here at this point. But I do like Fournette. I like Deebo Samuel, and I like Diggs more than I like Swift, Andrews, and Jones.
So, with Javonte Williams there at 16, maybe he can be a nice sleeper as a rookie last year who's clearly going to take over the backfield for Denver. Devontae Adams, everyone knows he's going to take a little bit of a step back. I think, maybe 17 is good for him because Derek Carr should take a jump up with Darren Waller on the team, and now Devontae Adams. We'll probably see this, pretty similar production out of Devontae Adams. So let's say instead of him going at 7 overall, 17 seems right. Fournette right afterwards. I love Fournette, and this is kind of the conversation of DeAndre Swift being at 13 and Fournette at 18 with Fantasy Pros. I'm not sure that these are guys I'm willing to take at that number when you've got at 19 Deebo Samuel, who I'm not sold on quite yet. 20 Stephon Diggs, who I'd probably take over Fournette or Deebo Samuel. And then CeeDee Lamb, who I think it's absolutely ridiculous that you would put someone like, Aaron Jones or Javonte Williams over CeeDee Lamb this year. So he's at 21. And then probably the most controversial right now is Saquon Barkley's back in the mix here every single year just because of his talent alone. They've got him at 22. Mike Evans at 23. As you're looking at this tier 3 right now and you see that 13 through 23 with DeAndre Swift, Mark Andrews, Aaron Jones, Javonte Williams, Devontae Adams, Leonard Fournette, Deebo Samuel, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Saquon Barkley, Mike Evans. I mean, are you comfortable taking those guys before who you see in tier 4?
It really depends. I mean, the way I really see this is I just think it proves so – it's just the proof's there. You have to get a running back within the first round because I think there's such a drop-off in talent. I mean, between Swift, Jones, Fournette, Barkley, And then, 24 and 25, who we'll talk about, I just think there's such a massive drop-off. That's what I've taken from this list. I mean, what do you think? What's your thought process on that?
And then here we go, because we're pretty much rounding out the top 25 in our thoughts in that. 24, they have James Conner. 25, they have Alvin Kamara. 26, Tyreek Hill. So let's make that our baseline here. They've got Saquon Barkley, James Conner, Alvin Kamara, who they know is going to be suspended for games, all above Tyreek Hill just because he's moving over to the Dolphins with Tua. And obviously there's the top 25, but just for some reference here, they've got guys like Josh Allen, quarterback for Buffalo, you know is going to put up massive points. We've talked about this before. It might be even better to get your quarterback who's going to have 440 total fantasy points or something crazy like that over some of these dudes that they've just, put into the tier 3 that we've seen hurt. Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, guys like that. I mean, like, if I'm sitting there and I've got the choice between Barkley, Fournette, and Josh Allen, I'm sorry, I'm taking Josh Allen. I'll get somebody else to be my RB2 or RB1 later. Alvin Kamara too. I'm not taking Alvin Kamara over Tyreek Hill or A.J. Brown or T. Higgins or Cam Akers or David Montgomery or Keenan Allen. All those guys are getting taken before Alvin Kamara this year. So I think their 25th pick at Alvin Kamara is absolutely ridiculous. There's a lot of things you can do with that 25th pick that make more sense than missing Kamara for a third of the season. Kyle Pitts would be a better choice. DJ Moore would be a better choice. Antonio Gibson's probably a better choice even. Ezekiel Elliott's pretty high on their list at 29. I'd probably take him over Alvin Kamara. So, I mean, that 25th pick is really controversial to me, and even the James Conner one is a little iffy because he had such a slow start to last year after switching over from the Steelers to the Cardinals, and then he kind of blows up to be a thing. I'm not saying James Conner is not second round worthy. I'm just saying it's one of those things where it's like, if I've got the choice between James Conner and Tyreek Hill, I'm taking a few minutes to think about that pick. What about you?
I'm going to make this simple. I'm taking Josh Allen over Tyreek Hill, Alvin Kamara, James Conner, Mike Evans, Saquon Barkley, and CeeDee Lamb.
And I like it.
I think he's proven now that with him being a dual threat, he's got a cannon of an arm. You got Diggs locked in. Gabriel Davis became a thing last year. They've got a revolving door at tight end. They potentially have a running back finally, and Dalvin Cook's kid brother out of Georgia. I mean, I think I'm calling it right now. Buffalo Bills win the Super Bowl this year. Calling it right now.
Yeah,
I'm all in on the Bills.
I tried that last year, and I think I'm with you again. I'm going to try it one more year. I really do think that they just have the overall talent to pull it off. And I agree with you. I mean, this is what it is. That's Fantasy Pros Top 25. I'm with you here. It's like, I think we've seen enough over the past few years where it's time to get a little back off the running backs a little bit. You've got a sure thing with Josh Allen to get you hundreds of points. He's going to get more points than Patrick Mahomes. The only other quarterback I'd even assume could match that, who's not as mobile as Justin Herbert, who's emerging as the Dan Marino of this generation pretty quick. So, again, it's going to be an exciting season. There's been a lot moved around. There's no DeAndre Hopkins for a little bit. There's not going to be Calvin Ridley for a little while. There's no Alvin Kamara for a little while. So, take that for what you will. I don't think you take Christian McCaffrey that high. I don't think you take, guys like that or Cooper Kupp over Justin Jefferson. But that's just me. Next time we get on the podcast, we're going to talk a little bit more about our sleeper picks and some of these dark horses, our sleeper horses, our rocking horses, whatever you want to call them. Rob's going to be talking about Michael Pittman. I'm going to be talking about guys like Rashad Bateman. We'll have that all for you next time on the podcast. Once again, this was Fantasy R&R with Rob and Ryan. We'll see you next time.